most people watching this video, if not all, have played a mobile game before. Whether it was back in the day where everyone had an indestructible Nokia and you could play that Snake game on your tiny screen. But nowadays, most people have played what's considered a classic mobile game, which usually means the popular games that were available since the early days on the iPhone. I'm talking about games like Angry Birds, Plants vs. Zombies, Fruit Ninja, and many others. Some vintage games like Flappy Bird and Brick Breaker were also still being played by people. Overall, no one ever looks back at the games in that era and consider them bad games. Eventually, popular multiplayer games also came out. Some well-known ones include Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, and many different first-person shooters. These days, however, almost everywhere in the media, mobile games have been getting hate from all sides. Long-standing games like Clash Royale appears to have its reputation hanging by a thread, and its other cousin games from Supercell aren't doing too well either. YouTube is filled with videos about the fall of, and then it's some classic game like Angry Birds, and the ones unaffected by these factors have had some sort of new monetization in it or has just completely fallen out of relevance. And with the absence of these games, semi-low effort money grab games are filling the market. But what I'd say is the biggest culprit leading to the fall of mobile games is short form content. It is definitely more common to see someone watching TikTok or Instagram Reels than playing a game. And the biggest question we ask is, how did we get here? Well, let's go back to around 10 years ago to see the situation before all of this happened. At this point, most people were still playing single-player games rather than multiplayer games, as there were way more actually good singular games, not like the garbage that you see in today's ads. There were also some games with a mixture of the two types, such as Minecraft and Geometry Dash, where you could play online with friends or online levels in Geometry Dash. However, for those particular games, apart from the fact that buying the game was required, since you couldn't play online in Geometry Dash without buying the full games, they were also available on PCs and consoles, where they were usually much more popular. However, there was still much more of a balance between mobile gaming and PC plus console gaming. Kids back then were much more used to playing on their parents' phone than watching YouTube shorts, and back then, while the young adults today, around their 20s and early 30s, were playing on PS4s or their gaming PC 10 years ago. However, this is where I believe the fall began. As people started growing older, those kids who used to play on their parents' phone and tablets, wanting to play higher quality games or with their friends, shifted onto playing on PC and consoles, as well as having more responsibilities, giving them less time to play overall. Of course, there are people who continue playing on their phones, mainly on the big titles, and maybe some of the sequels of the classic games such as Plants vs. Zombies 2 and Angry Birds 2. But things inevitably got worse as time goes on. Lockdown during COVID was the turning point. Obviously, not many people could have interaction during that time, so many things went digital. That was the last time mobile gaming would keep its dignity. People played much more games during lockdown on all platforms, and for the duration of the lockdown, mobile games didn't really seem to suffer. In fact, Among Us was incredibly popular back then, with tons of creators making content about it, while other games were also doing well. But something must have happened during those years, because by the time lockdown completely ended and mostly everything returned to normal, the damage could be seen. Most small single-player and multiplayer games were buried under the presence of TikTok and YouTube Shorts. Little kids would no longer play Angry Birds or PvZ. They would mostly watch YouTube Shorts or spend their time playing one of the many new trash money-grabbing games that I'm sure you've all seen. Those games that never have the same gameplay as what they do in the ads. The cycle was broken. While those of us who experienced those childhood games grew up to start playing the games that people our age used to play, or actually enjoy good new games and content that they didn't have, no one inherited the games that we used to play. Rather, the new generation have trapped themselves in their own little brain rot bubble, leaving no audience to enjoy the game that we once enjoyed. That was the situation by the end of the lockdown. However, even then, some games managed to survive and continue evolving. Some games I can name are the Supercell games, such as Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, and Brawl Stars, Minecraft, Geometry Dash, and a couple of the now old arcade games like Subway Surfers. But since then, the situation has eventually deteriorated into what it is today. Those surviving games today are all in hot water. While I won't get into too much detail, many of those games have become heavily monetized or pay to win, like in the case of the Supercell games. Videos are popping up left and right over the downfall of the most classic games such as PvZ and Angry Birds. I have watched a few of them myself and I would agree with what they are saying. On the other hand, PC and console games are doing much better, always being in a positive light and getting amazing new games, updates, and content. Not too long ago, the Switch 2 was announced, and I remember a few months back, Marvel Rivals was incredibly popular and was all over the media. The only time mobile games are popular these days is whenever they get caught doing something bad, and of course, at the bottom of whatever Reddit story or text messages you are watching while on YouTube Shorts or TikTok. Whenever someone says they play mobile games, people subconsciously associate them with iPad kids, which are notorious for being incredibly cringe and brain-rotted. In the end, mobile games have taken irreversible damage, and to be honest, there is little to no hope left. Other than diehard fans, unless something massive happens, mobile games will eventually die out, leading forward a dark world with forgotten childhoods. Rather than ending this video in a dark tone, I will have an honorable mention of every single good game I remember playing. Chances are that you have at least played some of these. If you guys ask, I might even make a ranking video, but for now, here are all the games in no particular order. Monster Legends, Star Wars Force Arena, Star Wars Galaxy Heroes, War Robots, PvZ 1 and 2, Angry Birds 1 and 2 along with Epic, Transformers, Space, Star Wars 1 and 2, Battle Cats, Tank Stars, Zombie Catchers, Bad Piggies, Piano Tiles, Rolling Sky, Minecraft, Marvel Snap, Soul Knight, Kingdom Rush, Banana Kong, Among Us, AdCap, RL Sideswipe, Pokemon TCG and Unite, Slug It Out, Polytopia, Jetpack Joyride, Cut the Rope, Slither.io, Dead Cells, Plague Inc., Shadow Fight, Subway Surfers, Hungry Shark, Temple Run, Minion Run, Ninja Go, Shadow of Ronin, and finally, Alien Shooter, and finally, Bowmasters. Honorable mention to Dinosaur Game, which you can technically play anywhere without Wi-Fi, hence being mobile.